Okay, I'm live, theoretically, or at least I feel that it's theoretically. This is the Patreon live stream for July 15th, 2021, a Thursday. I was just over on the main YouTube channel, basically trying to do two things. Number one, announce this live stream so potentially more Patreon supporters could come and enjoy it live. And then also to be there for the regular people who for whatever reason can't or choose not to support me on Patreon, which is an absolutely completely acceptable way to interact with me as a YouTube content creator. So this is occurring live now, and we will see if anyone is able to join us. Um, this has been posted, right? Hopefully, I don't know. It's going to refresh the page. Don't see your broadcast. Click start broadcast in YouTube stream window. No, well, that started. So why is this not? Well, I see the broadcast. We've been having all sorts of internet issues though as well. I'm over on looking at the Patreon, trying to. Oh, oh, there I am. There I am. So it's just that no one's here because they don't love me. No, no. I'm assuming that that's not the case. Though there were people that were, in the regular live stream who said, I'm doing this now, so I would have thought I would see them. I don't know if it's irony. It's like that old Alanis Morissette conundrum. Um, if the song is called ironic, but none of the presumably ironic things enumerated or listed within the contents of the lyrics are in fact ironic, so much as they are just shitty things that can happen to you in life. In other words, if this is a song that is assumed to have failed because despite being called ironic, contains no actual ironic scenarios, isn't that in itself ironic? It's a song called Ironic, but none of the lyrics involve anything that is actually ironic. I guess what I'm going for is that was a minor divergence talking about, I guess, irony in a general sense, but more so to the point. I made a special attempt to create this video in such a way that more Patreon supporters would be able to enjoy it as a live stream rather than just simply a bonus video. And it would seem that my efforts have had the exact opposite effect. I could see from the little data points in for me, the upper left hand corner of the screen that 4 people are watching live. So it might just be the fact that that you can't participate in the live chat. Maybe you're listening in your car. What's going on here? Oh no, I had it set to top chat, and there was nothing. I said to just regular live chat. And we got people here. We got Jonas is here saying, "Yo, I'm here. What more do you need?" I apologize. I wasn't seeing the live chat. It's just one of those internet days where nothing seems to be going off without a hitch. But I guess what I often say in these situations and scenarios is we can focus in on what's going wrong when in another way there's so much ample evidence that things are going right. You know what I mean? With this, I do not have top of the line computer equipment. This computer to my left is probably Christ, 6 or 7 years old. The webcam is the same webcam I've been using, literally the same webcam I've been using since 2015. The mic is new. but the mic wasn't that expensive. It was about 100, 100 some odd dollars, $150 maybe tops. So with this very limited budgetary outlay, I'm appearing to you, in presumably in some places high definition, um, around the world. Either live or recorded with the assistance of several different YouTube, internet companies working in conjunction with each other, Patreon, YouTube, etc. So what the point being is that, we get an audio glitch, we got a hiccup, and we want to say, God damn it, why does things work correctly? And it's like things aren't working correctly. Like, my God, like everything, like this is miraculous. When I was 8, 10 years old, this would be the conception of this would have been, like describing a Jetsons future, you know, be grateful. This is a reminder. This is not like I'm saying like you folks are not grateful. You should be more grateful. It's more so the point, like to say a reminder myself, like be grateful. Like, oh my God, this is happening. Here's Jonaside says, yo, I'm here. What more do you need? Joey Crowley's here, says, yep, it's working. Joey Crowley, I sent you a message on Patreon a few minutes ago. Disregard. Mary Thomas, okay, I'm here. Mary Thomas, yeah, I think so, but ironically, I'm a little delirious. Mary Thomas says, what is that noise or a fax? Is there a noise? That is a fax machine, but I don't know if you're hearing a noise. Joey Crowley, I was just watching a David Foster Wallace interview where he mentions irony, synchronicities. Joey Crowley, is anyone else hearing some audio compression artifacts periodically? So there's a noise. Jonaside, I post on Patreon chat trying to let you know. Also, I think I see you wearing a Brian Eno shirt. That is rad, my man. Thank you. It is a Brian Eno shirt. Mary Thomas, okay, Joey, I looked at his shirt and dumped beans in my life. Oh, Jesus. One of those days where nothing seems to be going correctly. There you go. There was a noise, but I think it stopped. Mary Thomas, or I could be delirious. Mary, I know you were telling me about some medical stuff you were dealing with. So if you're delirious, it's understandable, and I apologize, and I hope you get better soon. So I was over on my regular YouTube channel. It's good to know if the noise persists. I have live chat running now. It seems I'm having live chat running now successfully. So you guys feel free to let me know if there is some stuff. But it might be one of those things. It might not be us. It might be the internet. The internet is subject to the noise is back. Let me see if I can hear it. Can I hear it? Oh, maybe if I go over to that. Now here's the thing: if I try to spot check the audio by opening up YouTube, it may be the fact that I'll then start hearing weird shit because this just seems to be a weird day. Oh no, what's going on? Christ, it's just one of those days. Oh, you know what? Let me try. Jesus Christ. Is it my computer? Is it this computer? Ugh, Jesus. Let's go to my channel. Oh, I can't even see it because I think because I have it as unlisted. But that's ridiculous. I should be able to see this as a live stream. And I'm me, so shouldn't I be able to see my own shit? Or if I go to manage videos? This is ridiculous. Okay, so there I am there. So let me do this. So there's is there like a thing like view? I apologize, folks. I'm trying to figure this out. Let's see if this does it. Can you let me do that? See if I go there. Okay, so I seem to be okay, and I don't hear audio problems. I there's like if is it an occasional click? I don't know. It seems like if I talk, I'm trying to talk to see if I can monitor for the sound. I am on a wired internet connection. Joey Crowley says it's very periodic. I'm going to go ahead and say, well, I hear it. I mean, I hear that sounds like there's clipping. Maybe if I bring the Jonas says the intermittent sounds like a fax almost. Now, does it sound like the fax, like the modem sound of it connecting, or does it sound like it's coming out? Oh Jesus, we'll never know. We'll never know. Big crushed and down sampled. What I mean, and it's the craziest things that people would pay big bucks for that sound in a pedal, right? Like it's connecting, folks. I think I changed the VPN settings. Um, so who knows? But I think it's like, and it also might be like I said, the computer is 6 7 years old. You know what I mean? So and I could tell, like when I did the live stream before on my regular channel to kind of announce this thing, Joey Crowley says, "Oh, VPN is involved." You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I use a VPN because we did have this real kind of serious troll action, like a guy who was really committed, who was giving me a hard time, giving my ex girlfriend a hard time. It was just, and it was a hard time, So it was necessary to do stuff. It just was. Um, and we move forward through time, you know what I mean, and we move forward through time. Like I said, we got to be grateful for what we got rather than fixating on what we don't. So anyway, but when I was over on my regular YouTube channel setting up basically the announcement of this channel, of this live stream, even then over there, StreamYard wasn't recognizing my camera right away. It was just, it seems like one of those days where who knows what the problem is, whether it's the Ethernet connection, whether it's the bandwidth uploading, whether it's the camera, whether it's the USB port, or if it's all those things together, you know what I mean, or all those things privately, or if it's something happening, downwind for me, as it were. We may never know. And we might just have to be grateful for I apologize for the yawn. What we do have. So anyway, like I said over there on the main live stream, it's good to know we got 5 people watching, which is a record for us over here on the Patreon live streams, and it's good that I know that if we do Snowden, Down Jones Mueller shares and says Snowden says it's NSA, entirely possible. Joey Crowley says, in my opinion, this stream right here is 95% healthy. It's really not too bad for me. There you go. Hey, Joey Crowley, maybe even 97%. Getting granular, right? There you go. People can get into it like those like audiophile debates, you know what I mean? Like audiophiles at a CD store, listening to like a Pat Metheny 1988 CD going. Now, if you switch to the Blaupunkt, you'll see it's even with the EQ, um, you're not going to cure that with the Blaupunks. You're going to need even a mid-level Panasonic with Clarion horns is going to give you that high definition that I just don't think you're going to get on this. And that's why I always say Blaupunk. People think that they're getting high end because it's a high price, and that's not always the case. You know, and then here comes person number two. I don't know if I exactly agree with you, Dave. I hear the stereo separation just fine. You may be. We have this conversation all the time. We've been having this conversation in the store for like 12 years. You're finicky. I wouldn't say I'm finicky so much as I expect to get what I pay for, and I expect people to be honest. Whether you're a dealer, a wholesaler, or a customer, about the actual quality of some of these products on the market. I stand by my opinion. The Blaupunk speakers are overpriced for what you get. Okay, guys. Well, maybe we don't need to. Here comes person number three. Okay, guys. Well, I mean, look, we don't need to bicker about it. This stuff, this is like, you know, Stradivarius violins. They're all going to have their particular setup. What's your crossover? What crossover are you using? What receiver are you using? How is your CD player itself? What is the DAAD output? Where's the pass through? What kind of equalizer you use? You shouldn't have to use an equalizer to get the raw sound correctly off the CD. Oh, maybe you are being particular and finicky about it. I am out of here. I'm leaving. I don't know if I'll ever return. Quite frankly, I don't know if I want to associate with you people. Okay? This may be a hobby to you, but it's not to me. I say good day. Glenn, how do you stand Dave being in your store, man? Jeez Louise, that guy's a real piece of work. He buys the equipment, he pays for the equipment, he wants to come in here and bitch about it. Let him bitch about it. Well, what's your actual opinion about what he was saying about the Blaupunk speakers? That's the debate with the Blaupunks, and I'm not here to say whether or not. If someone wants to pay for the Blaupunk speakers, thank you for subscribing to the alternative channel, Joey Crowley. If someone wants to pay for the Blaupunk speakers, it's not for me to say to them that they're making the wrong choice. I demo the equipment, I give them honest opinions, I tell them the best I can. And if they want to buy the Blaupunks, and some people like the sound of that, I know that Dave thinks that they lack the high end. Like you said, if you want more high end, there's solutions to that. You get a Hitachi 37 8.5 band equalizer. You put all the high end you want to. You're gonna sculpt the sound. Nothing comes out just the way you need it. Nothing comes out just right for every particular connoisseur. It's like wine. So there you go. And scene. There you go. My God, how did we even get to 97% audio clarity? That's how we got to it. Is there a little boost there around? Or I'm hearing like 3 dBs in say 30k 30 kilohertz, around there, 30-35 kilohertz. You're getting that tinny kind of rasp on the plosives, on the P's. Can we do something with that? I don't know if I hear it, Dave. Yeah, it sounds fine to me. Okay, I know. Can we just try to, like, because I'm getting some. I think, and there's it's except that the speakers aren't exactly out of phase, but I'm hearing something. Christ. Here's Jonaside. I donated to the Patreon because you got sued. If you didn't do anything on Patreon, I still donate because I really truly enjoyed you going after CG and he sued you for it. Thank you. I appreciate that vote, and I appreciate you telling me. I still like to do these Patreon streams because it also focuses, and even just having um this little space where it becomes, I know I'm very informal in general, but where we can just kind of really be informal, and really just kind of go off the cuff and speak, on a much more, limited level, much more unique level, limited audience level, helps. But I do that, none of that withstanding, I do appreciate your kind words, Jonaside, and I take you at your word. Down Jones Miller, did you used to work at Best Buy? No, I never worked at Best Buy. I worked at Sam Ash Music in Paramus, New Jersey for God, like it may have been a month. It may have just been a month. I started working there like many people. I started working there, and only after I signed on the dotted line and became an entry level one first level clerk, was I told that, oh yeah, you don't get the employee discount. That was really why I took the job until you've been on the job, like, I forget what it was. It was like a month or 6 months, and I was like, are you serious? You don't get the employee discount right away? They're like, of course not. I was like, well, why not? They were like, do you know how many people would like get hired here, be here, get the employee discount, spend like 5 grand on a credit card, and then quit the next day? I'm like, are you serious? They go, yeah, fuck yeah. You know what I mean? I was like, I guess it makes sense. And when I was there, I worked at Sam Ash in Paramus, New Jersey for, like I said, for about a month, but I learned so much about the business of music equipment retail. It wasn't even funny. Um, and I learned how to not show up on the job on time and all sorts of stuff. It was a magical year because it was I was like getting into techno music. I had been in goth industrial bands, from like, 94, moving forward. And I think I must have worked there. It was probably somewhere tail end of 96, beginning of 97. Um, and, uh, and so I started working there, and so it was like it was the time of the American techno revolution. Rave was just like going into the mainstream, where you're having it all over the soundtracks of movies like fuck Hackers, you know what I mean? Not quite the Matrix yet. That was a couple of years down the road. But I remember, like, you know what I mean? It was like when I was in love with music equipment, like, and synthesizers and samplers and MIDI shit and computer interfaces. And I sold. I was actually a pretty good salesman. I sold tons of stuff, and I became famous for selling the Yamaha CS1X. Was what they called it, a controller synthesizer. And this was, in this era, the big thing was virtual analog. In the techno community and even the alternative community, there was a huge resurgence and popularity of old school analog synths like Moogs and ARPs. And they were very difficult to maintain. And so what ended up, the companies, and like the Roland TB-0303, which was like the key sound of techno. So like Acid House, and so the 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 manufacturing companies like Yamaha and Roland started making all this, like, virtual analog equipment, or this equipment that was specifically geared towards techno musicians, which was like a first time musicians, right? First time. Like, I have an Roland MC303 over here, right over here, that people know, that I use a lot, and this was like the quintessential, like, Roland, who made the TB303, came out with this thing. It was called a Groove Box, and everyone was making these sort of like techno in a box sort of things, and like the Korg elect tribes and stuff and whatever. Anyway, so Yamaha had this great synthesizer called the Yamaha CS1X, and had the knobs for real time control over filter and stuff. And I had one, and I was very good at programming it too. And unfortunately, I made the mistake of selling it, um, because I became enamored of, like, there were these, like, like, just like I was talking about, these like virtual guys we were talking about in the stereo store. I would become fixated on these like ridiculous concepts, and I would use it to make badly informed decisions. And so what it went like this is that, so the Yamaha CS1X, um, its main sound source were samples, what was known as PCM samples. So a virtual analog synthesizer um, can build up from the basic building block of sound is a waveform, and waveforms come in different sizes. Usually the main types that people talk about are sine waves, triangle waves, sawtooth waves, which can go up or go down, and square waves that can be pulse modulated. And then you have other things like white noise and whatever. Um, so analog synthesizers would start off with a waveform like that, and then you would filter it and adjust it, the amplitude over time, with generally what's known as a ADSR, an attack decay sustained release envelope. So there were virtual analog machines like the the Nord had one that was huge. It was a huge one. Was it like the Nord Lead? I think it was called. One of the first ones that came out from Korg was a monophonic instrument called the Korg Prophecy. But anyway, then there were other synthesizers that it wasn't based on a virtual analog waveform. It was based on little samples, like, a horn sample, or digital sample of a square wave or whatever. Um, and the Yamaha CS1X had that architecture, and I became convinced that, well, what it was is that Yamaha then came out with this rack mount unit called an FS1R, which was based on FM synthesis, a much more complicated thing. And so I ended up trading in some equipment to get a Yamaha FS1R when it first came out. And I used to use the Yamaha CS1X, and I could program it up and down. And I had patches on it that were set up to sound, and they did sound pretty much like digital glitch artists, like Oval. Like, I had ones that, like, you could press it and play it in a certain way, and it would sound a lot like Mersbow. It was great, and I sold it. It was one of the pieces of equipment that I sold in order to get this FS1R, which I've barely touched since buying it, because it's just so complex. Um, and A story, you know what I mean? But when I was at Sam Ash, I used to sell Yamaha CS1Xs. Like, I used to sell like two a day. It was like ridiculous. Because I knew it in and out. So, because this was like back in the day when I first started getting equipment, so I didn't have a ton of equipment. I had like the one synthesizer, one sampler, and that was what I had. So I knew this thing in and out. So I'd basically be able to be like, show people, like, you can do this, you can do this, leave this arpeggiator, blah blah blah. And so I used to sell these things like wildfire. Um, and because I was new there, you would get a commission. But because I was new, I was just paid salary. I hadn't yet gotten the upper tier to get a commission, so I would sell, under the whatever guy was the main keyboard guy on the floor. And the guys generally liked me because they were like, look at this guy, he's fucking selling. And there were these guys that they would call them herns. And what a hern was somebody that would come in and waste your fucking time as a music equipment salesman. They would, like, ask you all these questions, like, can it do this? Can it do this? And then they'd be like, well, I don't know. Like, I'm looking for something like maybe like some more traditional sounds. Like, I do more straight composition than I do electronic stuff. And so you'd be like, oh, maybe you want to take a look at this Kawai, KS1000. You have the more exotic, analog sounds. You're like, here's the You get this. Here's your classic Rick Wakeman, Lucky Man patch, like do 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 do, and I'm playing it for them. You know what I mean? Like, but you also have these, these more traditional. Like, listen to the string section. Ba ba ba. You see that? You hear the attack? Like ba. They use a sample, a string sample, a real string sample at the top, but then they go into the analog synthesis where you can hear that and hear the fade away. And then I'd be like, they would come in, they would just ask you all these questions, and they would leave and buy nothing. And they'd say, I'll be back, and I'll think about it, and I'll come back and buy something. And I remember one time, like I was with a guy like that what I just described. He was kind of like a real story, and I was with this guy for like 45 minutes, like showing him all these different keyboards and shit. And when I turned around, when he left, I like looked around, and there were the two main sales guys. One guy, what was his last name? God, I think one of the guys' name was Michael. I remember him. The other guy's name was Tom. And Tom was great. And Tom stayed there for a billion years. He ended up becoming, like, I think, a manager. He might still be there. I have no idea. Um, both cool guys, both really cool guys. And I turn around, they're kind of laughing. And I'm like, what the fuck's so funny? They're like, you spent 45 minutes with that guy. You know that, right? And I was like, yeah. I said, but you know what I mean? Like, if it turns into a sale, and they were like, that's not going to turn into a sale. That guy comes in like once every 2-3 weeks, and they said to me, they go, you know what he does? And I'm like, what? He goes, he waits till a new guy shows up, and then he talks to them, like, it spends 45 minutes with them, because he knows that they don't know any better. And I'm like, what do you mean? That guy never buys anything. They're like, we don't even know if he even fucking plays keyboards. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and then that's when they taught me about Hearns. There was another guy there. Because this is Patreon only, I could drop names. His name was John Andrini. Okay, and they had this thing where they used to call him this thing where they used to make fun of this guy all the time. It was funny because before I worked at Sam Ash, I worked at Compact Disc World in Paramus. Another guy, I worked at every job I worked at was in Paramus. This Compact Disc World in Paramus, and there was a guy there. He was a fat guy, and he had glasses on, and he would kind of talk like this. You know what I mean? And be like, yeah, hey man, what's up? What's going on, bro? I'm doing okay. Another guy. And he used to make these sounds. Like, he would just like you would be like on Tuesdays when the new CDs would come out, we'd have to like package them all up, put them in the little plastic, holders so that people couldn't steal them, and then put them out, alphabetically with this whole system. And like, so you'd be there like putting them in, and he would just like walk behind you, and he'd be like, so you'd be like there, like, organizing things in the jazz section or whatever, fucking putting the Pat Metheny's and separating them from the Stan Getzes or whatever. And he'd just come behind you, and he'd be like, he would just like do these weird things, and he was like, it was like crazy. And he was like, what is that deal? What is that guy's deal? Like, what the fuck's going on with that guy? Anyway, so then I quit that job, and I go to Sam Ash, and there's this guy John Andrini, and I'm like, we're talking about that, and then they're like, oh, his roommate is that guy from Compact Discord. I'm like, you fucking kidding me? He lives with that guy? And he's like, yeah. And John was like one of the most high strung people I ever met in my life. He did not play music, but he was just into sales. So he just worked at Sam Ash selling keyboards, but he wasn't like, he didn't know, how to play a fucking note. But the reason he was famous, they used to make fun of him all the time. The reason that he was famous was he once, Sam Ash would buy used equipment. They would buy used equipment sometimes. And John had okayed the purchase by Sam Ash of this like 1972 like broken, apparently, organ. Like, it was like this like total piece of fucking garbage. But it wasn't just a piece of garbage. It was like a heavy piece of garbage. It was like a 45-pound monstrosity with a fucking like billiard table sized, fucking like footprint and like, a pedestal and, faux stone or whatever. And they used to call this thing because this thing, they said they kept it, he bought it and it was on the floor of Sam Ash for like days, according to them. Could have been like this, could have been apocryphal, but like 2 years and never moved until they finally threw it in the dumpster. And they used to call this thing the Adrenitron 5000. So that was his fucking name. They would just be like, hey, Adrenitron 5000. It was hysterical. Down Jones Muller writes, did you ever judge and comment on the musical choices to the customers or of the customers? I wouldn't judge anybody, for their musical choices. But I mean, occasionally, what I was when they hired me, they probably didn't give two fucks. But what I thought I was there, kind of where I thought I was there in the food chain. And remember, I was there like a fucking month, right? Before I was like, I'm fucking out of here. Was I figured that I kind of thought of myself and stylized myself as like the new techno equipment guy. Do you know what I mean? Like there were guys there that were like had serious chops as piano players. So like the piano section was completely different than the keyboard synthesizer section. And the keyboard synthesizer section, because it was a strange time. So like there was new equipment coming in. Was it keyboard equipment? But it's like, what's a groove box? Is that a drum machine? Does that belong in the drum department? Is it a keyboard piece of keyboard equipment? What is this? Is this DJ equipment? Like what's going on here? There's a lot of different strange stuff. I'll get to Down Jones Mullet. I think you're asking about the musical choice of the customers, not in Sam Ash, but in the CD store. We'll get there. So where was I? So that's how I kind of thought of myself. Where was I going with that story? Where I saw myself. How did I get here? How did I stylize myself? How I thought of myself? Thought of myself as where equipment would go is like kind of a new thing. So that's how I thought of myself. Not that anyone gave a fuck. But there were people. So there would be people that would sell like the piano guys would be like, be able to play like Chopin or like Oscar Peterson. They would demonstrate, the keyboards in a particular way. And there were guys who were like, it was this changing of the guard. So these two guys that I mentioned, like Mike and Tom, they were from like the school of like, I play keyboards in the rock band. Don't stop believing. Do. Like they could play, and they were like, and it was weird because they were kind of like, I'd be into all this, new music and shit, and they'd be like really into Floyd and like really into like Styx and shit, and then it was like bizarre. But and so they would get the new stuff, and they would like get this like new, like they said, like a new Yamaha CS1X or Record Prophecy, and they'd be like, I'd hear them demoing it. I'd see kids come in with like big baggy pants or whatever, and these guys, these salesmen, and this is not an insult, would be like playing like fucking, Emerson, Lake and Palmer riffs to demonstrate the stuff. And I'd be like, no. This is what they want to hear. And I'd turn on the arpeggiator and go, whatever it is. And then you hit the drum machine that's built in. You build up the beat with the pads, where it goes. And then the kids would be like, oh, hey, you know what I mean? That'll work. I go, they're not trying to buy a keyboard. They're trying to buy a fucking, groove machine. They're trying to buy a techno box or whatever the case may be. But anyway, I digress. When I was working at Compact Disc World, Down Jones Muller says, did you ever judge or comment on the musical choices of the customers? I think referring to the CD store, because he goes on, to them, Wax Trax in Denver was famous for it. Wax Trax was a record store run by two guys. I'm not going to pretend that I remember their names, but Wax Trax in Denver, I think they ended up opening up a second spot in Chicago because they became famous for. They started a record label called Wax Trax, and that was the kind of one of the first pivotal American industrial music labels. They put out the first like 12 inches or LPs by like Ministry and Revolting Cocks and you know My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult, and I think that they did some of the early stuff for KMFDM for American releases. So and the first, because I have the famous, they did a box set in 1995, 96, where it was called I forget what it was, the Black Box by Wax Trax, and it was 5 CDs, and it was a retrospective of the entire like first like decade or decade and a half of Wax Trax records. They ended up getting bought by TVT, which was a much more commercial, kind of small, like one of the larger independents. It was barely a minor label, more of a major. Anywho, it was run by a notorious dickhead. Anywho, um, the first single, the first record put out by Wax Trax was by Divine, the famous drag queen who worked with John Waters in all of his early movies, and it was her version of the Name Game. You know, let's do Sally, 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 Bobally, Banana, Fana, Fofally, me, my, Molally, Sally, and that's how you do it. You take the first letter, drop it. Then you take the second thing, reverse it around. What? And then you do the whole thing. You say Molly, Molly, like that fucking thing. Oh shit, yeah. So then here comes. Yeah, okay. Damages was super cool info. I only knew a little bit of that. No, I know the whole fucking story, but I've never been to the store. But I know record stores that are like that. But I know a record store that wasn't like that, and it was Cafe Sounds in Montclair, New Jersey, was the spot for industrial music and culture um, in New Jersey. And that's with the exception of the clubs. There was, for the clubs, it was Pipeline in Newark. Later, there was a place called QXT's, but that was when I was starting to get out of goth and more into like rave stuff. Um, but Cafe Sounds was run by a guy called Bobby Sounds, and he was a fucking cool ass dude. And they had everything, but it was organized so poorly. It was like smacked into this little tiny spot. But he wouldn't judge you for shit. He would, you know what I mean? He would just encourage you one way or the other. And he would, like, if you liked one thing, he would recommend something, similar. But there was like no fucking judgment. There was no like, that's a newbie release. First of all, because he owned the place, you know what I mean? There was like, who used to work at Cafe Sounds? Was fucking James Plotkin from Old. And then he went on to be in Con8, which featured I think it featured some players in common with Sun O. Con8 released their records on their CDs on Southern Lord, that was run by Greg Anderson from Sun O. Down Jones Miller says, "Who remembers Warlock Pinchers?" I don't know if I do that, but I know that Jonaside is here. Says, "Do you remember the Big Black epic album songs about fucking?" Absolutely, I did. Shoe print on her forehead. What the heck? That was a great album. Big Black they weren't an industrial band. They were more of the industrial fans loved them. They were a punk band that had a drum machine. And the lead guitarist of Big Black was Steve Albini, who ended up becoming one of the biggest music producers of underground music ever. And he later had a band called Shellac. That was his second project. But he produced In Utero for Nirvana. And he produced like a whole bunch of stuff. But his reputation was pretty good because what he was famous for was like he would produce these really extremely raw punk infused masterpiece records. But so the end result was this thing that sounded kind of so raw, but his reputation was how he got to that raw end product was that he almost was like a kind of like his rep was kind of like that he was a real fucking hard ass in the studio, like that he was a real hard guy to work with. That he was like another take, and that he was like basically almost like a Joe Meek or a who's that guy that ended up shooting that chick, the Wall of Sound guy. Who am I thinking of? The guy who was someone's Wall of Sound. He ended up working with the Ramones on the album with the red cover. Was it Rocket to Russia? The heck is that guy's name? I'm gonna look up Wall of Sound and it'll come right to us. He shot a bitch. I apologize. He shot a woman. Wall of Sound producer. And then there's also Wall of Sound. Phil Spector. Oh my God. Phil Spector. Did you know that fucking there's a famous story with Phil Spector and the Ramones where they walked in one day and they're recording, they're tracking. Yes, Down Jones Muller gets, as I'm starting to tell the story, Down Jones Muller has it. He put a gun in Joey Ramone's mouth. He fucking brought a gun to the studio when the guys were like, when Joey was like, hey man, what's the gun doing in the studio? It was like, oh my God. Oh my God, Phil Spector. Holy shit. So anyway, so like Phil Spector was like famous for like fucking running people through the fucking mill, like killing people in the studio to get like this masterpiece sound. But like Phil Spector was going for, you know what I mean? Like, you know, suddenly, you know, like whatever those classic Phil Spector Wall of Sound recordings. And Steve Albini had the same reputation, but what would come at the end was fucking like Nirvana's in Euro, which is great stuff. Like, let me look up his bio. Who am I thinking of? We just mentioned his name, Steve Albini. There's a great interview with Steve Albini from about a year ago on YouTube where he talks about In Utero at length and the recording there and all this stuff. Wow. Steve Albini, I went right to Wikipedia. Born in July 22nd, 1961. God, it's just 14 years old. Like, is an American musician, record producer, audio engineer, and music journalist. And what he's famous for, this is what's really crazy. This is actually really cool. I'm going to go back to you guys for a minute. Steve Albini, as a producer, what was standard operating practice since like the 70s up until when Steve Albini was producing Nirvana's In Utero. And I think the American record industry has completely changed because record companies don't produce CDs anymore for a large part. It's incredible. Mary Thomas is at her. We'll see you around, Mary Thomas. Producers used to take what's known as points on the record. So, for example, if fucking Joey Kramer, who produced Rock and Roll Over for Kiss, and I think he produced Electric Ladyland for Jimi Hendrix, famous guy, Joey Kramer. I apologize. Joey Kramer is also the name of the drummer for Aerosmith, the former drummer for Aerosmith. So I don't know if I got the guy's name right. And it's not Wayne Kramer because he was the guitarist in the MC5. Eddie Kramer. So guys like Eddie Kramer, guys like fuck it, I'm not gonna go for another guy, just Eddie Kramer. They would take points on the record when they produce the records that they produced, which means like they would get residuals, they would get money for each individual record sale. I believe I might not be getting the business model or the actual thing, but whatever, they would take I know they would do this. They would take something called points, which means that for all the record sales, they would get some sort of residual or payback. And I know that it kind of basically came out of the artist's ass, kind of the artist's, percentage of profits. So Steve Albini wouldn't fucking do that, and he would take a fucking flat fee. So I forget what the estimates are, but it's like if Steve Albini had taken the traditional record producer deal that the major record labels were doing at the time, if he had taken that deal on In Utero, he might have made like millions of dollars, like $5 million, $10 million, right? I don't know, but like a fucking $1 million, like a huge amount of money from fucking Nirvana. So it's not like fucking, Chris Novoselic and Dave Grohl and fucking, Kurt, we're going to go fucking, starving. Yeah, they were from Chicago. Big Black was from Chicago. Like they would starve if he took the fucking standard deal. He fucking turned it down and took a fucking flat fee. So, like, say what you want about punk rock. Say what you want about people who put on an affect and a uniform and a slogan or whatever. There's a place where the rubber hits the fucking road. It's like fucking Fugazi with Discord Records and their shows. You go to a Fugazi show. Fugazi shows are $5. It's $5, all ages, no drugs, no alcohol. $5. A CD was $8.50 on Discord Records, no matter where you bought it. And there was a big sign on the CD that said, "This CD is supposed to cost you $8.50. If the record store that you're going to is charging you more, don't buy it. Write to this address, send us $8.50, and we'll send you the fucking CD." Right? That's where the rubber hits the fucking road, where people turn down fucking money on fucking principle. And that is very fucking rare. So there's a whole bunch of people, Green Day, Rancid, who put on all sorts of affectations and uniforms as they go home, get into their BMWs, take their kids to private schools, and live in fucking Malibu. And then there's people who don't. This Jonas says, I think it was $75,000 was what he took. No, not positive. So let me see. So let's go back to his bio on Wikipedia. This is Wikipedia. On music, he was a member of Big Black, Rape Man, and Flower, and is a member of Shellac. He's the founder, owner, and principal engineer of Electrical Audio. And he used to play loud. He was famous for playing very loud. In 2018, Albini estimated that he worked on several thousand albums over his career. He has worked on acts such as Nirvana, Pixies, The Breeders, and PG Harvey. Albini is also known for his outspoken and controversial views on the music industry, having stated repeatedly that it financially exploits artists and homogenizes their sound. Nearly alone among well-known producers and musicians, Albini refuses to take ongoing royalties from album sales, feeling that a producer's job is to record the music to the band's desires, and that paying a producer as if they contribute artistically to an album is unethical. That's some fucking heavy-duty shit. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to get to the in the Chicago area. Albini was active as a writer in local zines such as Matter and Forced Exposure. Holy shit! They ended up turning into a distribution company. It was huge. Okay. Then he was in Big Black from 1981 to 87. I'm trying to think. I want to get to the big record. Oh, along with the drum machine, the Roland TR-606, credited as Roland. That's crazy. That now I'm gonna get because Behringer put out a clone of the TB-303, and I know they've got a clone of the TR-606. I had forgotten that if I ever remembered that was the drum machine that Big Black used. Now I have to get one of those. Even though it's good, it's a headache to spend more money on music equipment. In 1987, the band released their second studio album, Songs About Fucking, as well as the He's a Whore, the Model 7-inch single. That was a a cover of Kraftwerk, both on Touch and Go. Big Black disbanded shortly after a period of extensive touring that year in support of songs about fucking. Durango enrolled in law school and became a lawyer. Holy fucking shit. Maybe I'm wrong about his attitude towards recording. Maybe I was wrong. Anyway, you guys don't need me to read Wikipedia out loud, or to myself especially. So there you go. Down Jones Miller, is Albini still around doing music still? Yeah, it's my understanding. I don't think he's retired, and I know he's 14 years older than me. So if he's 14, 15 years older than me, he's barely 60. So he's probably still in the game. So I can imagine his years have probably taken a whacking. He was one of these guys like Jay Mascis from Dinosaur Jr., who was famous for playing fucking beyond fucking loud. Do you know what I mean? Genocide writes, I saw them in Seattle that tour, but I was really drunk, so I don't recall it so much. Hey, there you go, baby. You know what I mean? Welcome to America. But I remember it was like Big Black Songs About Fucking was an album that a lot of people picked up just for the extremely distinctive album cover. It was like this very harsh, not quite neon green, and then it had the song, the title, like Big Black Songs About Fucking, like, and of course they had to do something with the name, and then they had the cover image was like a clip, like this cutout of it was from some like nameless manga or whatever, and it was like this girl with this guy behind her, and he was biting her shoulder, and on the side, like in very small print, I remember this, it said Happy Otter / Sad Otter, whatever the fuck that means. But it was crazy. You'll never forget it. This was like when you got fucking physical product in a physical store that could make a physical impact, and you could appreciate something for just the cover art and be like, damn, yeah, I'm picking that up, whatever the fuck that is. Before you just fucking streamed everything for fucking free and had absolutely no emotional investment in the stuff at all. Anyway, 57 minutes and 35 seconds in. This is what I like about these things, because I end up just telling fucking stories. Compact Discworld. I want to tell you a couple of Compact Discworld stories. I may have told these stories 1,003 times on the main channel. If you know me long enough, I'll tell these stories 1,003 times more. They'll probably get better with time, a la Corey Good, because why the fuck not? I'm getting old as we fucking speak. I'll tell you one classic story so I don't blow through all the stories in one load. And I may have told the story before. So I'm working at Compact Discworld, okay? And I worked there for longer than I worked at Sam Ash. And so here's the story. I'm working behind the register, and the register was right next to the phone. Okay? People rarely called. Oh, Down Jones Muller says, what was the album that did this Ramones record with Phil Spector? I want to say Rocket to Russia, but that might not be it. I know it's the one with the stark gray cover. I mean, not gray cover, the stark red cover. End of the Century. That's the one. End of the Century is the fifth studio album by the American punk rock band The Ramones, released on February 4th, 1980. So that album is... Hold on. It would have been 20 years old in 2000. It would have been 20 years old in 2000, which means it's 41 years old, which makes perfect sense because I'm going to be 46 this year, and I was 5 years old in 1980. 41 years old. Can you fucking believe that? That also, can you believe that if a kid was born in fucking 1980, they're already in their fucking 40s? Can you fucking believe that? Holy fucking shit. Anyway, the album was the band's first to be produced by Phil Spector, which means that after fucking Phil Spector pulled a gun on Joey Ramone, they went back into the studio with him? Hold on. Though he had offered the band his assistance earlier in their career, with Spector fully producing the album, it was the first release that excluded original member Tommy Ramone, who had left the band in 1978 and had produced their previous album, Road to Ruin. That's interesting. Spector used more advanced standards of engineering, such as high-quality overdubbing and echo chambers. These painstaking methods caused conflict between the band and Spector, since the Ramones were accustomed to a quicker recording process. Spector emphasized the production value as well, working with a budget of around $200,000, far exceeding their earlier album sessions. Judy as a Punk is on that. Having an Affair is on there. Christ. Do you remember Rock and Roll? Jesus Christ. I was recording and production in February 1977 after attending a Ramones concert in Los Angeles. Music producer Phil Spector offered to assist in making Rocket to Russia. That must be the connection that I was thinking about, Rocket to Russia. The band declined his offer, feeling as though the album would not be the same without Tommy Ramone. And and check this out, Tony Bon Jovi producing the album. Tony Bon Jovi is related to John Bon Jovi. Hold on. Can you believe this fucking tangled web? Anthony C. Bon Jovi is an American record producer and recording engineer. He is the second cousin of John Bon Jovi, is the lead singer of the band Bon Jovi. Holy fucking shit. Can you believe that shit? So there's a fucking Bon Jovi fucking Ramones connection. Holy fucking shit. While the band refused the initial offer, their management later asked Spector to help with the album because of their lack of popularity and sales. Don't forget, I mean, Jesus Christ. I want to get to the recording sessions for the album began on May 1st, 1979. Conflict. The method of recording caused conflicts to arise. Bassist D.D. Ramone wrote of Spector's obsessive techniques. Phil would sit in the control room and would listen through the headphones to Marky hit one note on the drum hour after hour after hour after hour. During the recording of Rock and Roll High School, Johnny was forced by Spector to repeat his part hundreds of times over the course of several hours. Sire Records owner Seymour Stein relates, to Johnny, this must have been like Chinese water torture. I understood Spector's attitude, said Marky. He was from the Bronx. I was from Brooklyn. We got along very well and had a nice rapport. But he had his way of working that was very slow, and the Ramones had their way of working, which was very fast. So that would sometimes irk everybody and led to animosity with Johnny and Dee. Early in the sessions, Spector reportedly held the Ramones hostage. That's what happened. Early in the session, Spector reportedly held the Ramones hostage at gunpoint. You have to visualize this. According to Dee, when Spector took Joey away for a 3-hour private meeting somewhere in his mansion where the album was to be recorded, Dee went looking for them. The next thing I knew, Phil appeared at the top of the staircase shouting and waving a pistol. Here's the quote. He leveled his gun at my heart and then motioned for me and the rest of the band to get back in the piano room. He only holstered his pistol when he felt secure that his bodyguards could take over. Then he sat down at his black concert piano and made us listen to him play and sing Baby I Love You until well after 4:30 in the morning. I have a headache from laughing. Johnny gave a similar account in a 1986 interview. He always carried 3 guns, around with him. We were prisoners in his house for about 6 hours, and we thought we were going to get shot. I said, let's go. And he pulled out a gun and said, do you want to leave? I said, no, that's okay. We'll stay for a while. Can you imagine being the fucking Ramones. You're the fucking Ramones. Right? But you also have to remember, is like we talk about the Ramones now with like fucking the fucking Deedley twin sisters running around with Ramone shirts in 2002. Who the fuck were those? The Olsen twins and shit. You know what I mean? Like we're like the Ramones are the Ramones now, and you can buy their t-shirts in Hot Topic and the fucking models with them, whatever. And they're the fucking Ramones and they're fucking famous, right? But you have to remember, like in 1980, the first Ramones record came out like in 1975, 76. So they're just 5 years into their career, and it sounds like people fucking didn't like them that much. But you're still the fucking Ramones, and it's still fucking 1980. And how about this? You're still a fucking human being on planet Earth, and Phil fucking Spector is holding you fucking hostage with a fucking gun. You know what I mean? It's fucking crazy. And then you get out of that situation. Do they work with him again? Like, what the fuck? And then, however, in 2003, Marky Ramone gave a different account of the story. There were no guns pointed at anybody. Guns were there, but he had a license to carry. He never held us hostage. We could have left at any time. According to Marky, there you go. Dee Dee claimed to have left the sessions without recording anything. We had been working for at least 14 or 15 hours a day for 13 days straight, and we still hadn't recorded one note of music. Oh, my God. Wait, Chenze goes, this is Dee Dee from his autobiography. He wrote in his autobiography after supposedly hearing that Johnny, the guitarist, had returned to New York. Dee Dee, bass player, wrote that he and Marky Ramone booked a flight and returned home as well. To this day, I still have no idea how they made the album End of the Century or who actually played bass on it. Dee Dee's account contradicts much of the band's collective account from the 1982 Trouser Press interview, where the band stated that the only track that Johnny, Dee Dee, and Marky did not play on was the cover of Baby I Love You, as the band, save for Joey, had gone home after cutting basic tracks for the rest of the album. Who the fuck knows? And the Ramones are like famous for, like, there were like 4 of them, and they could be like at one party together for an hour, leave the party, and they would all have a different account of the fucking what the fuck happened. Like to hear them talk about who the fuck wrote actually each individual song. I swear to God, like Tommy Ramone, who was the original drummer, I swear to God, I've seen multiple interviews with him where he said they ask him who wrote what song, and he gives like a different answer. Oh, Christ. But I wonder if they went on worked with him again. And then remember, you have to remember that, oh shit, it was like 20 years later that he fucking murdered, what was her name, Lana Clarkson? Holy shit. So imagine you're the fuck, I mean, I forget when all the Ramones died. All the original Ramones on that first fucking record are dead. Joey, Johnny, Tommy, and Dee Dee are all dead. Dee Dee died first. Joey died second. Johnny died third. And Tommy was the last to pass away. It's like that song by fucking Christ, I can't remember his fucking name. He wrote Basketball Diaries that turned into a movie with famous actor dude number 37 and 8. What was his name? These are the people who died. Let me go back to the live chat. We're gonna wrap it up. It's 7:21, and I gotta go. But we'll know that we did a bonus video for you guys, and I'll pull a card for us as well. Genocide. So I brought up Big Black because I saw a punk kid with it on his jacket and pulled Big Black. What do you know of Big Black? And pulled a Big Black. What do you know about Big Black? We're all getting old. Crotchety old man. You call that music? Down Jones Miller. What album did the Ramones record with Phil Spector? We got that. Genocide on 51. You can't believe that. Genocide's Down Jones Miller. Cool. Thanks, CW. This is really fun. Way different than flaming weather balloon discussions. Absolutely. Down Jones Miller. I got to see them once in 1983, Rainbow Music Hall in Denver. My friends, they died. Yeah, absolutely. The fuck is that guy's name? Now I'm gonna look that shit up. Hold on. I'll be right with you. The Jim Carroll Band, People Who Died. Lyrics: Teddy sniffing glue while Teddy sniffing glue. He was 12 years old. Fell from the roof on East 29. Kathy was 11 when she pulled the plug on 26 Reds and a bottle of wine. Bobby got leukemia, 14 years old. He looked like 65 when he died. He was a friend of mine. Those are people who died. Those are people who died. Those are people who died. Those are who people who died. They were all my friends and just died. G-Berg and Georgie let their gimmicks go rotten, so they died of hepatitis in Upper Manhattan. Sly in Vietnam, bullet in the head. Bobby OD'd on Drano on the night that he was wed. They were two more friends of mine, two more friends that died. Those are people who 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 died. They were all my friends, and they died. Mary took a dry dive from a hotel room. Bobby hung himself from a cell in the Tombs. Judy jumped in front of a subway train. Eddie got slit in the jugular vein. And Eddie, I miss you more than all the others. And I salute you, brother. Those are people who died. 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 They were all my friends. And they died. Herbie pushed Tony from the boys' club roof. Tony thought that his rage was just some goof, but Herbie sure gave Tony some bitchin' proof. Hey, Herbie said, Tony, can you fly? But Tony couldn't fly. Tony died. Those are people who 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 died. They were all my friends, and they died. Brian got busted on a narco rap. He beat the rap by ratting on some bikers. He said, "Hey, I know it's dangerous, but it sure beats Rikers." But the next day he got offed by the very same bikers. Those are people who died. 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 They were all my friends, and they died. Teddy sniffing glue. He was 12 years old. Fell from the roof on East 29. Kathy was 11 when she pulled the plug on 26 Reds and a bottle of wine. Bobby got leukemia, 14 years old. He looks like 65 when he died. He was a friend of mine. Looks like the repeat. So there you go. We're all gonna die, man. Genocide. Offspring ripped that song off and nobody called them on it. What was the one that they did? I remember because I can hear that fucking guy's fucking. It's the do 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 like that. I can hear his fucking voice. The Offspring. Anyway, folks, card for us. 3 people watching live. We had 5 people. People will catch it on the rewind. Kids are all right. There you go. A card for you and me and Bobby McGee and the people that died. The Hermit. I feel like we got this bad boy last time when I don't know if it was us talking or if it was on the live chat somewhere. We got it recently. The Hermit. What does this mean for us in the context of this video? You know, whenever I pull a card for, we're going to pull a card for this stream, man, and I make it in context, not like we're going to pull a card and just talk about the card, but I pull it, a card and I say we're going to do it and see it's like for this stream, how it relates. Oh, shit. Okay. So the whole thing, remember the intro, this video that I did on the main channel where I was like, this is not easy. Like, you know what I mean? Like I want to give the Patreon supporters something. So I'm doing these, you know, exclusive streams, but I feel bad putting anything behind a paywall. But the people that support me are showing me love on Patreon, and I want to give them something, but I also want to give you guys something. So I'm making this video, even if it's just an introduction video to say that there's gonna be a fucking exclusive live stream, not trying to show off, but trying to say I'm gonna give something to you guys here as well. But the point being, for me, is that you got to go your own way and you got to, you know, follow your path and, you know, work it out and make a call and figure out a call and then say, some people are going to react to it the right way. Some people are going to react to it the wrong way. And that shit's out of your control. That's them to interpret, right? It's the hermit, like a crazy old man who's fucking should be avoided. Is the hermit making the right call or the wrong call, turning his back on society and going his own way? And think of all the fucking people going their own way that we talked about in this fucking video. We talked about Steve Albini doing it his way. We talked about Phil fucking Spector, kind of like an opposite persona of doing it his own way or doing his own thing, or being like so idiosyncratic as to be a murderer, you know? And there's probably a whole bunch of different other people that we talked about in their own small way on their journey. So it makes sense to me. I think it works. It's not that much of a stretch. Okay. Down Jones Muller says, so long, way fun. I'm glad I joined Patreon. Jonaside says, I really enjoy the Patreon, different and more personal. I think so. We just fucking talk. I love you. I love you. I love you, though. Some things will be the same as the regular channel. And that's me, the way that I am. I love you. I love you. I love you. If nobody told you they loved you today, somebody just did. That's somebody's CW chanter, even if you got to hear me say it twice. It's all right, and it's all the same, and it's all true. Okay? Thank you for being here with me, whether you were here in the live chat with me talking in real time or whether you're catching this on the replay, either soon from now or weeks or months or years later when you finally join Patreon or whatever, or when it all becomes fucking free because it's irrelevant or whatever, because the fucking sun goes supernova. Love you. Love you back to Jonaside. Thank you for the love. I'll see y'all again real soon. Until next time, brothers and sisters, and everyone else in between. Until next time.